Before this one gets started, we just wanted to let you know if you are listening to this on audio, you may want to go back and check this one out on YouTube or through one of our social media channels to get the link just to see how Dr. Guy actually puts this whole thing together. He does a great job of explaining it, but it might be useful to go check that out. Enjoy trying to make some kefir.
I've used pasteurized milk for a long time and don't have a problem. I mean, our farmers do the raw milk with their calves and it works quite well. But the argument that, well, you've killed the bugs, you're putting the kefir grain in there, so you're putting the bugs back in. So I don't worry about pasteurization being an issue.
Sure.
With the milk. Okay. I think I prefer organic because there is a small amount of antibiotics in conventional milk. And we know that because there is a tolerance level that's allowed. And so in here, I've got some kefir grains. I'm going to put them out so we can see them a little better. Now these guys, this is the other cool thing. These guys have been asleep for quite a while. I dug these out of a jar that was sitting in my fridge for, I would guess, 6 to 8 weeks. And you would think that would be pretty rotten milk after 6 to 8 weeks. And it's interesting because a month is no problem. When this stuff is fermented, it gets a low pH, it gets very stable. Now this is fresh milk in this little jar that I've got here, but these are the grains. Just want to give you an idea.
So you created these grains yourself by just letting it sit then? Basically,
you put it in the milk like that and they grow.
So you had to put the grain in the milk originally?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this one here is one I'm hoping that it's done. It's pretty close. How far you let it ferment is kind of a personal thing, and you can see this one is getting see how it's getting a little creamier and thicker on the top. Okay. This is the other cool thing about kefir is that some people talk about homogenized milk, not liking homogenization. The kefir, I don't know if you could really use this word, but it kind of unhomogenizes it. It actually brings the fat back to the top
really?
Through its processing. I don't know how it does it, but you actually will get a fat layer. Of course, depending on what kind of milk you ferment. My wife likes to drink lower fat milk, and so I don't think it ferments as well, but you can make kefir with skim milk even. But I like the whole milk for this process. And so what I do is look for the milk to start to thicken after a while. And this is like getting thick now. And what it'll actually do when it sits in the jar, if you look at the jar, if you let it sit long enough, it actually looks like it starts to get cracks in it. Now this, I don't see the cracks here because I just stirred it up. But when you see that, to me, that's when it's perfect. If you let it keep going, what it'll do is it'll keep fermenting and the pH will go lower and all the protein will precipitate out. So it'll be like cottage cheese, it'll be like curds and whey. And then you'll get a water layer. Okay? You'll get a water layer. So I've got another one in here in the cooler I'm going to grab.
So how long does it usually take for you to leave it out? I mean, is that like a week?
Yeah, it depends on how much of this you got, how much grain you have.
Okay.
So when the grains are proportioned the way I like them, you can usually get this to ferment overnight. In 8 to 12 hours, you can get it to ferment. And what happens? Now this one. Hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. They make CO2. That's what's happening to sugar. It makes CO2. Now, this. I didn't write the date on here, but I usually write the date. This is at least 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks old. This one.
Oh wow!
And so what I do is if you worry about whether it's bad or not, you just smell it, and it smells
good.
It's sour.
Yep.
But it's really not putrid.
It doesn't smell. Yeah.
And what happens, if fats go rancid, you get that little putrid smell. Then I get rid of it. But I can use the same jar on the counter for 7 to 10 days without even cleaning the jar out by just fermenting it, pouring it out, put new grains in, put new milk in. Then what that fat will start to get around there and it will start to go sour. The fat will start to get a little rancid. You could smell that. You just sniff it and you smell it. Then I start with a new jar. Just start over again, But it's very low maintenance that way. This you can see is kind of watery. It usually separates out, and I think there's just so much curd in here in this one that you get a water layer. Usually you get a water layer, you can actually see the whey layer.
So you just stir that up then? Or shake?
This one is, what I did, I had another jar like this where I got these guys yesterday. And what happened is I took them out and rinsed them. And so when you rinse them off and they're like this, they're pretty stable. This is how you can transport them. And so what I'll do is I'll take these kernels like this, grains like this, I'll put them in a little sandwich bag, and I'll actually put them in my luggage. and for a day or two, they're stable. As long don't leave a lot of milk on them. I would rinse. There's a little milk in here now. I would rinse that off, and you can take that in travel. And I've taken it when I travel, and I just take my coffee cup, and instead of putting coffee in, I put kefir grains in the bottom. Go down to breakfast in the morning, put milk in it. Never put this in the refrigerator. Just leave it out. And actually, there's enough stock culture in it. I just drink right out of there, and refill it the next day. And not even. I mean. Until you have a bad smell or anything, you don't even have to clean the thing out. It's amazing. That may be gross to some people, but it's kind of a fun thing. So these grains, they kind of vary too in their size. And when it makes the most grain is when it goes past. So if you keep changing them quickly, they don't grow as much. It's almost like when these guys are stressed, they start to make more. You see how they're like kind of bumpy?
Yeah.
And so they'll make like, see, like this one here, it's got all these arms and stuff on it. Well, those pieces will break off, and they'll make another curd like this.
Sure.
Sometimes these curds will get the size of a golf ball.
Can you eat these then as
Yes,
well?
yes. Yeah, there's no problem with that. They're actually quite good. It's like,
awesome.
yeah. They're and this is the issue is that when farmers they want to do this kefir as either supplement or feed their calves totally kefir, and it really helps their calf health. And they'll get these curds and they'll start making the kefir, and then they go away and somebody feeds their calves, and they forget to separate the grains. And so they dump the kefir in the bucket. The calves drink it and they eat all the curd. Then they're done because they don't have the grains to go back to. So you got to sieve them out. You take a sieve of some kind and sieve them out and start them over again.
And when you look at the price tag of the kefir in the stores, this is very appeling to make your own too, because it's not cheap. I mean, in comparison to if you just get some milk and do this yourself.
Yeah. So actually, I've got kefir for both you guys.
Nice.
So these kefir bottles are I think they're fermented just right, so they're ready to drink.
Awesome.
And there's like 4 of these kernels in each one of those. So you can start. You can just take that home and start it up again. But I have some here that this is what I drank this morning. I just thought we'd just have a little.
Awesome.
Because
Thank you. This is cool.
I
yeah.
have to rewatch this video to make sure I don't screw it up.
And so with this, then you said the lactose is fermented.
Yes.
Is that correct? So
Yes.
Is it entirely out of the kefir, or it's just at
It's
lower
pretty
levels
much. It's
than-
very low. I don't know what the number is, and so it really depends how far you let it go.
Got it.
I think you can ferment it all out because I think there's no lactose in this one.
Wow.
That's very sour. If you taste it, I mean, I took some of that old stuff yesterday and just tasted it. It's just I didn't really drink a lot of it, but it's very, very sour at that point. But this is
Cool.
yeah. So
Cheers.
there you go. No, it might be an acquired taste for some people because it is sour. It's not overly sour.
I like it.
What I like is the creaminess of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's what I watch to get to the point where it thickens. Because it'll ferment for a while and it won't get thick, and you stir it up a little bit and you see that it's getting thicker. When it gets to that thick part, or when you see that it's actually starting to separate a little, starts to crack a little in the jar, then I put it in the refrigerator and shut it down. Okay, because if you just leave it on the counter, it'll go all the way it'll go to the whey. Okay, the curd.
If you put it in the refrigerator and shut it down, can you still pull the grains out later? And you can
These ones came out. These ones have been in a bottle like this for like 2 months. And so I just start when they get like that. You really want to rinse all the old stuff off. I rinsed them like 3 or 4 times yesterday. I put them in some milk yesterday and let them sit on the counter, and I put them in milk on the way down here. This little bit of milk here, and it takes them a couple days to wake up. But you can take these old grains and restart them again. I generally don't keep them that long. I just keep the fresh ones going. And then you have to gauge by if you size your container. What do you want to ferment? How much milk do you want to go through? You can do little jars. You could do pints. You could do quarts. I got a friend that does half gallons.
So how much you're consuming.
And then you just gauge how much depending if it's warmer outside, it'll go faster. how much grain you get in there. And the grains will build up over time, so you'll have to pull some out. Otherwise, it'll ferment faster and faster.
Give them to a friend. There you go.
Exactly.
This is good. I think it's a little bit more, like the stuff in the store I feel like is less carbonated. Like this almost has like that kind of almost sparkling taste.
If you
to it
let
a
this
little bit.
warm up now, I cooled this, I put this car in the cooler on the way down, otherwise I left it out this morning. I should have had it out longer. If you let it warm up and it starts to ferment better, it actually can get to the point where it's actually a little more fizzy.
Really?
I really like that.
Yeah.
To me, my struggle is not getting too much of this stuff. Because there's a lot to drink,
Right.
And so I'm always shutting it down by putting it in the fridge.
Okay.
There are other people that have big families that leave it on the counter, and they never let it get cold, and it'll ferment faster. It'll be more carbonated yet.
Wow.
And if you seal the top, and it'll actually and sometimes it'll just be like fizzy when you're drinking it.
Wow.
Yeah. The other thing you can do, and this is my wife likes, is you take this stuff that you like, that's about like your jars are right here. And you pull the grains out, and then you just take and add some fruit to it. If you don't like the sourness, we add just a teaspoon of jam or some berries or some maple syrup, and then you put it back in the fridge and let it ferment at refrigerator temperature very slowly. Just whatever's the bugs that are in loose, they don't have the grains in. And then that secondary ferment kefir, that's a very popular. I mean, it's very tasty. Then you can make it with whatever. We've done peach, we've done blueberry, whatever.
So you put it back in the refrigerator that second time with the fruit,
with the fruit,
and
yes.
it'll still
Yes.
ferment slightly,
Yes.
just slowly.
Yes.
Wow.
And that was an article online about that. A friend had sent me that came from the New York Times, I guess. So he was doing that secondary fermentation. We played around with. My wife really likes that. She doesn't
I
like
bet
this
it's
straight
delicious.
stuff, but I just have a taste for this stuff in the morning. It's just
Yeah, that's delicious.
The other thing about this is it is very satisfying from a hunger standpoint. If you've got the munchies or you're hungry, if you eat a little piece of fruit and drink a cup of this kefir, it carries you for a ways. It really does. And I mean, there's a lot of good stuff about it. And I don't know exactly what it's all made. What it's fermented to. There's got to be some of the proteins got to be broken down to peptides. We know that it's anti-inflammatory. We know that there's antibacterial properties here. We know there's a lot of things about it. But the other cool thing is there's a lot of mystery.